Good afternoon, boys and girls. Today what we're going to be working on is separating angles. So this time, unlike joining angles, we have to use subtraction because we're given a total amount and one angle, and we're looking for the missing angle measure. So when we separate angles, we often have to subtract. Okay, so when you think, that's a U, by the way. When you think separate, think subtract. Okay, so we have to take away an amount of something. So in this problem, the combined angle measure of this whole angle, so from this dotted line all the way to this end of the dotted line, is 60 degrees, okay? So it's 60 degrees up over here, okay? The whole thing. This little angle right here is 41 degrees, but we don't know what letter A stands for. So in order to figure out what letter A stands for, we have to subtract the angle that we do know from the total amount. So 60 would be our top number because that's our total, and we're going to subtract 41 from it to find out what A equals. A has to equal something, and we know that A is going to be less than 60, and it's even going to be less than 41 because you can tell that letter A is smaller than this angle that we already know. So we know that missing angle is going to be less than 60, and even in this case, less than 41. So we have our problem set up here, and we start in our ones column. We have 0 minus 1. Well, boys and girls, we know that if we have nothing, we can't take something away. So we have to regroup from our tens place and regroup the 6 and make the 6 into 5 tens. And that means we can give a 10 over here to our ones place and make this a 10. Then we're going to subtract our ones. So 10 ones minus 1 is 9. And then we're going to move over to our tens place. We have 5 tens minus 4 tens. So 5 minus 4 is 1. So we have 19 degrees, which means that little angle, angle A, is 19 degrees. Now, that's all great and everything, but what if we want to check it and make sure that when we add the two angles, we get 60. So we know the total should be 60, so that means we add the 41 we already have and the A that we just solved for. So this is our check over here. When we check this problem, we add what we just solved for and the other angle. So 19 plus 41, and we should get 60. Oops, I'm sorry, that was supposed to be 41, boys and girls, not 40. Let me fix that. 41, there we go. So 9 plus 1, well, that's 10. 0 in the ones place, and regroup the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 more is 6. So we did check out to be 60, so that means that when we did our subtraction, we did it correctly. Very good, boys and girls. So when we are separating angles, and when we have two angles, we just subtract the total minus the one angle that we have. The next example that we're going to look at, boys and girls, involves separating angles that have more than 2. So in this particular problem, we have a large angle that's broken into 3 different smaller angles with a total combined angle measure of 180 degrees. This type of problem requires 2 steps. So I'm just going to remind us by writing 2 steps over here. Now, like the other problem, there will be subtraction involved in this problem, but in order to know what we are going to subtract, we first need to add the 2 angles that we know together. So we're going to break this down into 2 steps, and I'll do them in different colors so you can see them. So the first step we have over here. So we know the combined angle measure is 180 degrees. This angle all the way on this dotted line is 180 degrees, okay? And we know it's broken into 2 smaller pieces, or 3 smaller pieces, 116, 42, and A. We don't know what A is, and that's what we're going to be solving for. So the first step, would be to figure out the amount of the angle that we do know. So that's the 116 and the 42. So we have 116 and 42. Notice how my 42 lines up in my correct place values in my 116, and my ones places in my ones column, my tens places in my tens column, and my hundreds are in my hundreds column. So the first thing we have to do is add the two parts that we know. So 6 plus 2, that is 8. 4 plus 1, that's 5. And then 1 would just get carried down. So we know that two of the angles measured together are 158 degrees. And I'm still missing that letter A. So that brings me to my second step. Now is where I'm going to do some subtraction. So now I have my step number 2, okay? So now I take my total angle, 180, and I subtract it from the amount that I know, and that's the 158. So that gets brought over here and goes underneath the 180, 158. Okay, and now instead of adding this time, we are subtracting to find out what my leftovers are for that letter A. So, like the other problem, we have 0 minus a number, and we know that we can't take anything away from 0, so we have to regroup from the tens place. So we go over to the 8 and the tens, and we get rid of one of them and make it have 7 tens left over. That lets us bring a 10 back over here. So 10 minus 8, we can do that now because we have more than what we have on the bottom. So 10 minus 8, we're left with 2. Then we go over to my tens column, 7 minus 5, that's also 2. And then we have 1 minus 1, which is 0, and we don't need to write a 0 there because we don't write a 0 in a place value that we don't have when it's our biggest place value. So that means that my leftover amount, when I take my total 180 degrees and I subtract it from the 158 that we got in our first step, we have 22 degrees left, which equals our letter A. It's our missing amount, okay? And again, over here, we can do our check. I'll do it in pink. So this is our check to make sure that we got it right. That means we can add all three of the angle measures together. 116, 42, and 22 to make sure that when we add those together, we equal 180 degrees. So 6 plus 2 plus 2, well, that's 10. 0, regroup the 1. Then we have 2 plus 4, that's 6, plus 1 is 7, plus 1 more is 8. And then we have nothing to regroup, and then we bring down the 1 to get 180 degrees. So when we add all three of those angles together, we do get our combined measure of 180, which means our 22 is the correct amount. If you have any questions, boys and girls, when you're working on the assignments, please don't hesitate to email us and ask for any help. Good luck.